Now let's get to a more a more difficult topic to talk about. Okay, so Remington, the gun manufacturer, just settled a $73 million lawsuit with some of the victims of Sandy Hook, the tragic Sandy Hook mass shooting. Now, let me preface this by saying my thoughts on the settlement have nothing to do with the tragedy that happened at Sandy Hook. There's nothing I can say. There's no dollar figure that Remington can chalk up to give life back to those young kids who lost their lives and their families. The kids didn't deserve it, and the families didn't deserve what they've been put through because of this. And does some financial compensation do something for them? I don't know what, because I've never been put in a situation. That's for them to say. But it is what it is. Like I don't have a strong opinion on them being paid from somewhere. But the somewhere does matter. Now, if you don't know what happened at Sandy Hook, a young man, 20-year-old, shoots his mom and then goes and shoots up the school. So let's look at the young man. He grew up in a house with a mother who was a big gun enthusiast. Took him out to shoot a lot, so he had great experience shooting. And like I said, grew up around firearms, so he was very competent with the firearm, very comfortable with the firearm. No problems there. But this young man struggled with a lot of different mental health issues. Um, and from reading and just some little Wikipedia research, the none of his mental health professionals thought that he gave off any violent behaviors, but I, based on what I read, he was very good at hiding things. Okay, and hiding things because he had a dark room. He had his windows taped out, and nobody was allowed to come into his room, to include his mother, who he lived with. Now, after the Sandy Hook shooting, they found, weapon. They found like pictures of him like holding guns to his head, which he eventually committed suicide. And they found out that he had a fascination with mass shootings, to include Columbine and some other tragic shootings that have happened. Now, early detection would a lot of things would tell you this person probably doesn't need a weapon. If they're not mentally stable, they probably don't need a weapon. If they have this fascination with mass shootings, they photograph themselves with a gun up to their head, they probably don't need to be in possession of a firearm. But if the mom doesn't know this, she doesn't know to shield her son from these firearms. But I say, if you live in my house, like, you're not stopping me from coming in your room. Like, I ain't saying I can come in there whenever I want to, but to not know what's in your room, to not be able to see what you have on the walls, I can't get with that. But anyways, Remington is now filed for bankruptcy, and they're paying out $73 million to some of the families of Sandy Hook. And I'm not the biggest fan of this, because I'm afraid of what precedent are we setting? Okay? What type of precedent are we setting to that we are holding the manufacturer of the gun, the manufacturer of the firearm, responsible for the user's actions? Now, in the lawsuit, there was verbiage saying that the product placement made the gun more appealing by being placed in video games. All right. So do we not hold the video game manufacturer responsible as well? I mean, we can't hold the parent at this point, because the parent was killed, but Where does the accountability truly lie? It's not like this young man purchased the weapon from a Remington shop factory or whatever. He had access through his mother. Now, I say this is a slippery slope and a scary precedent that's being set because, for one, uh, Remington, looked to use a federal statute that protected them, and the Supreme Court said no, go ahead with the case. And what I truly think this was a bad case of optics. It's like, oh my God, one of the most tragic school shootings in United States history. If my memory serves me correctly, it was the largest school shooting in the history of the country and the fourth largest shooting in the country's history. So we have to do something about it. Yes, we do. But we have to do something about gun control. We have to do something about those who have guns. We have to do something about security. I don't think attacking the gun manufacturer in this situation is the right answer. Because, it's going to kind of flow into my next topic. Where do we draw the line of influences? So if I have a car accident and I hurt somebody or kill somebody, can I go sue Ford? Because of their F-150 commercials made this truck so appealing to me that now that I'm operating and I'm operating irresponsibly, and I can blame them because that's how I take it. Now, do I think that, there's no use for AR-15 in normal person's life? Absolutely. But if we're not going to limit people's access to that, then you can't knock the company for making it and trying to sell it. Are we going to take Grand Theft Auto off the shelf? Are we going to take Call of Duty off the shelves? Are we going to take any game that involves violence and guns, realistic, any first person or third person, whatever shooter? Are we going to take those off the shelves? Are we going to take the little phone apps where you can be a sniper? Are we going to take those off of our phones? If that's the slope that we're going to go down, if that's the approach we're going to take, we'll have at it. Are we going to bankrupt another gun manufacturer? Are we just going to get rid of firearms? So we're going to violate the Constitution? I don't know where we stop here, and I don't want to seem like I'm over sensationalizing it, but it's scary. I truly don't know where we stop, but I do know where we start. We start with more education, more familiarity, and better screening. Okay? This guy was familiar, he was educated, but he was not in the mental space to possess a firearm. And so I'm going to place some responsibility on his parent, because that's where he lived, for not restricting his access to said firearms because of its mental space. But ultimately, the responsibility lies on the man with the gun. We have to hold the shooter accountable for his or her actions and not the company. Because Remington didn't fire off not one shot.